The reeling Green Bay Packers welcome the above 500 New York Jets to Lambeau Field. Despite their recent fortunes, the Packers remain touchdown plus favorites. Kerrane, I feel like every week I'm asking you guys to break down the Packers receiver core, but we'll start this week with the Jets receiver core. Pat, what is going on with the post-Joe Flacco usage, and is Garrett Wilson going to get back to wide receiver 3 territory anytime soon?
Yeah, so the Wilson stuff has been bad for Garrett Wilson. He's seen target rates of 17% in each of his games with Zach Wilson. In 3 games with Flacco, he had a much stronger 21% target rate. I also am worried that maybe his routes have topped out a little bit. He had an 88% route rate in week 4, down to 75% in week 5 against the Dolphins. Corey Davis jumped up from 71% to 92%. I don't think that Wilson sort of, failed in terms of his ability to break out. But sometimes when we see these wide receivers breaking out as rookies, they'll bounce around for a little while before then they take the next step. So I think maybe we're kind of plateaued a little bit in terms of Garrett Wilson's route participation, and the emergence could take a little longer than we were hoping for. I still am confident in Garrett Wilson. We had a very kind of double-edged sword positive sign from Zach Wilson last week. He had his best completion percentage over expected of his entire career.
Awesome, dude. That's great. Let's go.
It was also the first time that he ever posted a positive completion percentage over expected in his entire career. The dude is crazy and accurate. So at least he got in the positive for once in his life. I'm pretty much out on Elijah Moore at this point. 0.98 yards per route run. He has a really bad yards per target. We can expect some positive regression, but he's a 15% target share. So it's positive regression to what? To a bad flex play. It's not good. Corey Davis is still involved. Corey Davis has been more efficient than his routes on Elijah Moore, but his routes are kind of all over the place. He's been at 75% or lower route participation in 3 games. He's been at 85% plus in 2 games. So he actually has a lower target share than Moore because he's not always out on the field, and it's tough to predict what his deal is. I also would note that I listened to the rankings pod. You guys were kind of talking about Tyler Conklin a little bit. Don't start Tyler Conklin. He only ran 7 routes.
Well, Kyle basically told me that Conk Daddy's been canceled.
He's been canceled. CJ Uzomah, 54% of dropbacks. He was out there running a route. Seems like Jets may now have a tight end by committee, unless I missed an injury for Conklin. But Conklin looks like you're seeing what happens this week, but you might be dropping him.
Oh, dude, drop him. It's Tyler Conklin. It's not like we're he's
maybe it was some unreported injury. Tight ends are weak enough. I might wait.
But then he's injured. Who cares? It's not like Kyle Pitts doing the same thing where there's a good built-up cachet from last year and
Tyler Conklin has more built-up cachet from last year than Kyle Pitts does.
Kyle Pitts was 1,000 yards, right?
I was trying to make a Kyle Pitts joke.
This year,
all right, don't kick us while we're down. Don't kick us while we're down. Kyle Pitts is kicking us enough for liking him.
Craig, sorry, I don't know. I'm not going to try to ever call you that. No, you don't want to be called that. I do have this horrible, horrible, horrible habit of calling people by alternate names they've never asked for.
That's what my mother does. She just forgets.
Especially in public, I've got to cut that out. Denny Carter, is Breece Hall as far ahead of Michael Carter as it has appeared the past 2 weeks?
He is. I can confirm. So Breece Hall's workload is pretty legit. Only 8 running backs have more expected fantasy points over the past 2 weeks than Breece Hall. I think the one downside to Hall in this post-Flacco Jets offense is that, he's not seeing the same sort of routes and targets that him and Michael Carter were seeing, honestly, while Joe Flacco was under center. Against the Dolphins last week, Hall saw just 2 targets and ran a route on only half of the Jets' dropbacks. Michael Carter, meanwhile, had a 33% route participation rate and also saw his 2 targets. Now, Breece Hall did a lot with those 2 targets, as you may have seen. But usage is what we're focused on here. Only the Seahawks and the Bears, talking about this week, this week's matchup for Breece Hall and I guess Michael Carter, but only the Seahawks and Bears are more extreme run funnel defenses than the Packers through the first 5 weeks of the season. And this is for good reason. I believe Pro Football Focus grades Green Bay as the NFL's 3rd worst rush defense. They allow almost 127 rushing yards per game. That ranks 22nd among all teams. Everyone tries to establish it basically against the Packers, including The Giants, who had a negative pass rate over expected last week, even though they were down a lot of that game. Also, the Patriots had a negative pass rate over expected in their near week 4 upset of Green Bay. I think it shapes up. I know that the Jets are 7-point dogs, and we typically are not like bullish on running backs in that situation. But I think that I don't know if I totally believe in that line and the Packers being that much better than the Jets. So I think you're definitely starting Breece Hall, and I think you can be very confident in him this week.
Kyle, on the other side of the ball, Randall Cobb was the Packers' number 1 receiver on week 5 for some reason. Maybe it's like an England thing. Are we any closer to figuring out what is going on in the Packers receiver corps? Christian Watson not practicing this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Christian Watson's going to play, though it probably shouldn't matter. He just hasn't. He's been like a clear wide receiver 4 for the team and has been banged up all year. To me, Randall Cobb, I'm not buying it. I think because they had to get to the stadium on the other side of the road, it confused Aaron Rodgers, and he must have been thinking there was someone else there when he was throwing it to Randall Cobb, because on the air, it's still very clear Allen Lazard and Romeo Doubs are running more routes than him. They were the clear top 2 options on 2 and 3 receiver sets. They ran more routes than Cobb last week, which has been the case, as I said, throughout the year. The problem is no one on the team has a target share over 20%. It's just such a mixed bag, especially with Cobb, even if it's just including last week. If there's any threat of Cobb jumping in for more than 4 targets, which he hadn't done until last week, it becomes difficult to trust any of them. I will say, and it pains me to say this, Allen Lazard has like a 26% target share in the red zone. He's been the guy they've gone to, Rodgers has gone to replace the scoring part of Devontae Adams. Not so much the yardage part, but that's not to be expected. I still think I want to bet on Doubs long-term because he looks like he's probably going to be the most talented of all of them. But I think it's just like Allen Lazard flex play and kind of wait the rest out.
So on the Doubs thing, like we talk about targets being earned, and they're semi-earned, but there's also situations where like they're less earned than others, and one of those I would argue is screens, right? That's essentially It's like a run play in terms of they've designed a play to get you the ball.
You don't have to get open. You don't have to do much, to secure the ball. It's not a deep shot. Your point is great.
Yes. Yeah. So 31% of Doubs' targets have come on screens. So that's not great, right? Like, and you look at the fact that he has a 7.7 ADOT, that's part of the reason why he's we think of him as kind of a deep threat, but that would be a sign that he's having trouble getting open downfield. It's a similar situation for Christian Watson. On non-screen routes, he has a target rate of just 15%. So I do think you have with Rodgers receivers Lazard is basically his deep threat, and Lazard is not an ideal deep threat. So his ADOT is way down. It's down to 6.8 this year. Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, and Daniel Jones are the only ones averaging shallower throws. That's lower than Ben Roethlisberger's ADOT last year. Wow. So it's just, I think that's probably the biggest thing here is that when you look at like how they're actually able to get targets to their receivers, they're having to manufacture it a lot, and guys aren't really earning targets down the field yet.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.